Namaste, I'm Vijaya Vishwanathan and I'm here with Rajiv Malhotra in Princeton, New Jersey. Very delighted to be here, Rajiv.
Namaste, always wonderful to see you.
It's a great day and without further ado, we've been talking about Agli Baar Modi Sarkar and that's becoming a reality. So I wanted to get your thoughts on this victory by Modi and the years ahead.
I'm very happy because we have a stable government. 2 terms in a row, not only gotten rid of the old dynasty, but put the country on a stable course. This is very, very good news. And I'm hoping that this is a prelude to maybe 20 years of this kind of government, very stable, very strong, very patriotic. So that's the good news. But what I want to say is that I see a 3-level structure. The deepest level is Rashtra. Above that is Rajya, which is the governance. Rashtra is who we are as a people, our ideas, ideology, our land, sacred geography. Rajya is the government that is supposed to be in charge of it. And above that is a tamasha. So the point, so while we are very happy, we should not be content at the tamasha level. We have to now go deeper and figure out what should be the government all about, and what is the Rashtra, how is the state of the Rashtra. So while I'm very happy, I want our media and our public to start looking at this as an opportunity to go deeper.
Okay, so Rajiv, you mentioned Rashtra, Rajya, you threw in some words, and in fact you did mention in Delhi some months ago about writing a book on the Rashtra. So I thought this would be a good time to sit back and think what exactly are the lessons that you've learned from your research. What do you like for people to know about Rashtra, Rajya and the like, and just tell us what are some of the things that you want to convey in these books that you're coming up with.
I've been writing on the Indian grand narrative for a decade, announced it, and it's a very advanced state of my book. But before I can complete the Indian grand narrative, I have to figure out whose narrative is it. Is it people? Is it geography? Is it ideology? So this took me to the notion of Rashtra. It's really the narrative of Rashtra. So I need to understand what is Rashtra. I first started looking at Golwalkar work on Rashtra, Savarkar, Hindutva idea, all the way to Deen Dayal Upadhyay. So I looked at the RSS people's views on Rashtra, because after all their name begins with Rashtra. So they are the ones who would be the experts on Rashtra. And this is very good work they've done, and it helped me understand who they are and how they're different from BJP, because as I understand it, BJP is more Rajya and RSS is more Rashtra. Rajya being governance, Rashtra is the deeper entity of who we are. So I then decided I should understand Rashtra further back in time, and I went to the Vedas as a source. I hired a few experts, Vedic experts who know a lot of Vedic Sanskrit, to tell me where does Rashtra occur in the Vedas. And it's very interesting. The RSS writings on Rashtra do not quote the Vedic sources on Rashtra. So I wanted to find out, are there Vedic sources? Because they have this idea of Rashtra, and a lot of it was basically taking the Western idea of nation. In fact, the writings are full of discussions of what the Europeans are writing about nation, and then saying we also have Rashtra, which is the same. And I thought that is not quite a good way to start. The foundation should be our Rashtra defined on our own terms from our own Shastras. The different experts gave me examples of this quote and that quote from Rashtra. I started compiling it. I have a list of about 140 or 41 references to the word Rashtra in the Vedas. So I started understanding what do the Vedas have to say, and this is a book I'm writing. And one of the important things all of you should know is Rashtra as defined is a very different entity from Rajya. So one conclusion I reached is that the President of India should be called Rajyapati and not Rashtrapati, because he's head of state. So the state and the government are one organ of Rashtra. Think of Rashtra as a body. It has many organs, and these organs have specialized functions. They should work in harmony with each other. That's the Ayurvedic model of health. So for a Rashtra to be healthy, all its different organs have to work in harmony with each other. Rajya is one of the very important organs of Rashtra. Rajya is to serve the Rashtra. The government is to serve the Rashtra. So when you start looking at it in that way, you have to understand the theater of Rajya, all this election and politics and so much going on. Is it obscuring the deeper needs and issues facing the Rashtra? Do we really have a Rashtrapati? Because what we have is a Rajyapati. And who is the Rashtrapati? And what organizations are really looking after a long-term development of Rashtra per se? This is what the book on Rashtra is going to uncover. So I have a 3-level model. The highest level is the surface, tamasha, theatrics, fighting, people arguing who gets to be the Rajya, which organization, which political party is better for the Rajya, who will make this government and all that. And that's all theaters. Beneath that, much more serious, much more important is the level of discussion we don't have enough of on the Rajya. We need more white papers, think tanks. We need more, debate on policy at the Rajya level. And we need to hold the Rajya more accountable. Every minister should have on their website, this is my plan for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. These are my performances. They should put up what they promised and what they delivered. They should put it up, and this should be evaluated. We're not doing enough of that because we're at the theater level. Beneath the Rajya also is a 3rd level, the deepest level, which is the Rashtra. And that is where we are most deficient. And this is a lopsided priority, because the Rashtra should get the deepest treatment, and then the Rajya, and then the theatre. But I think we have a tendency to sort of sensationalize and be very excited about what's going on at the surface. So that's the kind of structure I want to uncover in this book, and put focus back on Rashtra.
So Rajiv, you talked about the Rashtra being depleted. And so let's start with the fundamental layer, if you will, as you've defined it. Is the Rajya serving the Rashtra well, is my question. Because there is this ethos of what is the Rashtra from Vedic sources onwards that you've said. And we have to, first of all, we don't even know what it is to find out how much it's depleted. So, and then on top of that, we have this layer of Rajya that you talked about. So is the Rajya serving the Rashtra well, or is it, in opposite direction? So how do you see that?
So, we have to evaluate democracy, because our Rajya is democracy based. So we have to evaluate. So let's just look at other countries, particularly UK and USA, from where we picked up this democracy, and see why are they stable and robust, even though there's a lot of theatre, drama, scandals all over. But still there is a robust thing. In the case of Britain, it's because they're very small, very simple, they don't have so much complexity, so much diversity, so many moving parts, plus they have a very long history. So that stabilizes their sense of Rashtra, who they are, the English language, royal family, great, all that stuff. That grand narrative of Rashtra is very secure, and the Rajya institutions on top of that are quite robust. So they can afford scandals. It won't put them apart. They won't fall apart. Mm-hmm. United States, same way, is very secure in the sense of American exceptionalism, who we are as a great nation. So the Rashtra narrative is very strong, and the Rajya institutions are quite robust. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you can have all kind of things going on. Now Indians feel, incorrectly in my opinion, that we can be like Americans. We'll also have a scandal, we'll go chase this guy, throw him in jail, and we don't have to worry about the running the government, because this drama is very exciting. I think India can't afford too much drama. I think in this business of tamasha, drama, circus at the surface level is hurting us. So the Rajya as a democracy needs to be cross-examined to see if it's structured properly. So I would say, in particular, a presidential system as for the Rajya level might stabilize it more. A system where there are primaries within the political parties. So the political parties, right now the Rajya are fiefdoms. In one case it's a family, in the other case it's 3 or 4 people who sit down and say, okay, you'll get the ticket to run and you'll get the ticket and you're out, you're not good enough, or you insulted me, so you're out. So it's all these personal relationships by a few people at the top who decide who will represent the Congress, who will represent the Mayawati, who will represent BJP, who will represent, all these different people. So a primary system would actually create a second level of democracy within each party, and that would make the Rajya level more robust. I would say that these are debates that are not happening, and they need to be happening.
Okay.
The centrifugal forces in India, which are the breaking India forces, pulling things apart. You might say there are similar forces in the United States also. But United States does not have the same threat, existential threat. So we criticize United States quite a lot of people do that. But let me just say a few things about the strength of the United States. First of all, it has no hostile neighbor. There is no property, there's no territorial dispute from the north, which is Canada, or south, which is Mexico. One side is a big ocean, Atlantic, the other side is a bigger ocean, Pacific. United States is very secure in its borders. United States has never had a war to defend its own territory, like India is always doing. United States is having wars in other parts of the world, other people's territories. Whether it is Korea or Vietnam or Middle East or wherever, or World War I or II, United States never had really to defend. So this so-called defense industry is actually an offense industry. It's not a defense industry per se. So this means there is no existential threat of that kind from an external source. And if you look at how much land there is compared to the population, exceedingly fertile land, the water supply is huge. United States could grow food for the entire world population. And this is true. United States could, if it wanted to turn loose the agriculture industry, it could supply the whole world with food. So this means that the basic necessities of survival and success and security exist in the United States like they don't exist in India. And so, for India to take liberties with things that are threatening and say, okay, we have human rights, we're going to allow people to go in the name of human rights to fragment us and break us up because, the Americans do this. We can also do it. We can't do it. If a patient is very fragile, does not have a strong immune system, they cannot take the same liberties with their health as a very tough guy who is able to take those liberties. So India has to understand that we have a huge number of challenges from the breaking India forces. We cannot trivialize them and treat them casually. We got to clamp down on them and be very tough. And so the Rajya needs to not be too much like the Americans. We can't afford to be, or like the British, because we are far too complex. We don't want to be like the Chinese, because that's a different kind of Rajya. So we have to invent what kind of a Rajya we want, which is not a copy of the Americans. It is not China-based, China-like dictatorship either. But we have to debate that issue. And I'm not sure that we have a structure and design of Rajya which is going to last us well.
See, when you bring up this word Rashtra so often, in the West, the word nationalism is frowned upon, whereas patriotism is a virtue, nationalism is a vice. Now, in India, you hear the words being confused and interchangeably used. So when you say Rashtra and the love for the Rashtra, is it nationalism? Is it patriotism? What is it?
Very good question. So Rashtra is a non-translatable. Rashtra, unfortunately, the founding fathers of Hindutva movement and RSS used the Western nationalism, the idea of nation, as the building block of their discourse. This is true in Golwalkar, this is true in Savarkar. They're quoting all kind of Western people and saying we are also like them. And so we just put in the Sanskrit word Rashtra as a synonym for nation. This is not true. And this is what my book points out, that if you look at the Vedic idea, it's a very different idea. So what is nation is a very recent construct in the West. What is Rashtra is a very ancient construct in India, and we need to understand. And I won't give away all the things in my book because I want people to read the book. But in a nutshell, neither the debate between nationalism and patriotism and all of this secularism, these are Western constructs for a Western history and past, which are not to be translated and mapped onto the Indian thing. I would use the word Rashtriyata. I would say we should promote Rashtriyata, which is not nationalism or patriotism. It's closer to patriotism. But it is not, I don't think we want to get into the debates of X versus Y based on what is fashionable in the West. So I would promote Rashtriyata, and that requires people to understand what the heck is Rashtriya, and then you have to read my book.
Okay, fair enough. So you always talk about de-weeding the garden before planting a new garden, and now we have a new term for the Modi government. So let me ask you first, has there been any de-weeding in the past 5 years? And if so, what are the areas?
Well, removing the weeds, yes. Modi has pulled out a lot of weeds. First of all, he audaciously took on this regional politics, caste politics, divisive politics. It's very unfortunate that Time magazine called him divider in chief because this Atish Taseer said so. But actually he's unified the country like never before at a grassroots level, and defied successfully all these divisive parties. All these regional breaking India fragmented parties, he has actually defeated them, which is a very, very big deal. So, this is really what building the Rashtra is all about. So somehow he's managed to do that. I mean, it's quite a miraculous thing that he has done. So this is de-weeding. I also feel that corruption at the central government minister level, you don't hear much about. I cannot say the same thing about states, and I cannot say the same thing about bureaucrats. That's a different story. But I would say you don't have ministers in the central government who are out there to get money before you can get an appointment. I mean, they're very approachable, they're very straightforward, they're very transparent. So that's a very big change, because this new ethos of dharma and ethics should start at the top. So that has been installed. Then I think this business of being ashamed of our heritage, at least in terms of yoga, at least in terms of meditation, at least in terms of basic values which are Vedic values, right from the top, we are seeing that shame, that we have to be ashamed of being who we are. That de-weeding has happened, or it has started. Okay. A lot more needs to be done.
Okay, so a lot more needs to be done. So in these next 5 years, what would be your priority? What would you? So let's talk two parts. One is structurally, what would you get rid of in terms of ministries or departments, institutions, and what would you add? What would you merge, and prioritize as we move forward?
So I see two big things that should be on the agenda for the Rajya, the new government. One is the bureaucracy that is running it. I mean, I'm not criticizing any individuals, but I think this whole IAS system with UPSC exams that are colonized. I mean, I've done some discussions on the colonization of UPSC exams. That hasn't changed. It ought to be changed. The way we select bureaucrats should be different. The way we train them should be different. The Indian Foreign Service people are not properly trained in terms of who we are, our national our Rashtra identity, our Rashtra narrative is not properly trained there. But I think the whole idea that you bring in people in their early 20s into the civil service and then till they retire, it's all inward mobility. This is very obsolete model of large organizations. I mean, this used to be the way IBM and AT&T and British Telecom and all these big giants used to work. And way back, I used to be a corporate executive there. Then I was brought in as a consultant to dismantle that. Because this is like 20, 30 years ago, people started dismantling that kind of structure of large organizations. So the bureaucracy should not be on this kind of UPSC exam which you give, in your 20s, and then you are still elected, and then nobody can fire a civil servant unless there is a criminal case and he's convicted of something wrong. I mean, if he's incompetent for being just a fool, for being a bumbling fool and underperforming, you cannot get rid of these guys. So, you see a lot of mediocrity in the Indian bureaucracy. You cannot hire people from the outside. They should actually, one of the things I used to advise my corporate clients when they needed a shake-up, when they needed to reinvent themselves, giant companies, and I worked right at the chairman's level. One of the things I would advise is make 25% of all your senior appointments from the outside. They should do that now. They should say that, they should bring subject matter experts from various domains, disciplines, into the government, into the ministries, into the heads of departments, and not be stuck with having to promote from within. Break up this old boys network of right now. If I have a successful meeting with a minister, number one, in some department in a ministry X, and he says we want to help you. After he's done telling all his IAS people, all the department heads, go help Rajiv, the thing is that they won't. And they'll even run circles around the minister. They'll tell him this won't work, the other ministry has to start the initiative, he has to go there, apply there, this is how he should apply. I mean, they just drive you nuts until you give up. If they don't want to help you, they won't help you. I have been through this whole circus running around Delhi, ministries, culture, HRD, all kind of places with zero results. Because these bureaucrats control. And the minister is not strong enough to say, do it or I'm going to fire you. I'm going to get somebody else. You can't do that.
But how did the left manage to do that? They set up fantastic institutions with the same, bureaucracy, the same mechanism in the government.
So the left developed, pipelines to feed the bureaucracy. They developed the history departments, the Ramila Thapars and all the other people of the world. They developed the curriculum, the Hindu newspaper, which should be called anti-Hindu. They are the reading material that UPSC requires you to read. So, by the time you enter the UPSC and you're successful, you're already conditioned a certain way. And then your elders, they raise you up in a certain way. So your policies are like that. So the decolonization of the bureaucracy is a very important job that hasn't started. And this is where I think Modi needs to pay attention because, he's just strengthened the bureaucracy. There is a very powerful PMO's office now. And so, they're good people, I'm sure, and they're doing a great job. But I think the concept that such a powerful centralized bureaucracy is going to control the whole country, and this bureaucracy is selected through this colonized UPSC system, this needs to be changed.
Would you do away with the IAS and the...
I think there should be a bureaucracy, just like they got rid of the planning commission that came up with Niti Aayog, gave it a different charter. I think if they symbolically, if they said, okay, we'll get rid of the IAS and create another name for a bureaucracy and come up with a new way, people will be selected, a new way that they'll be promoted. It's not just straight seniority, in terms of years and being old and all that, but performance reviews, you can be fired. New people can be appointed. That sort of thing is how it should be. In the United States, when a president comes in, he nominates and appoints heads of various government agencies. Up to the top 2-3 levels, he gets to appoint them. And for some of them, he has just the authority to appoint them. Some of them, he needs congressional approval. But it is not that the old guys continue. And the government may have different policies from the minister level, but the bureaucrats won't do it. In India, that's the problem. There can be a conflict between what the minister wants and what the bureaucrat is willing to do. And he will mark his time. He will be very, very, he'll make it look like he's helping. Hanji sir, he'll do like that. They are very good at that, and they are not going to do anything. So I have wasted a lot of time in Delhi and given up because it's just a useless thing.
Okay, let's wait for the next 5 years. Perhaps things will change. So Rajiv, just sort of shifting gears, we talked about Niti Aayog briefly. I'm wondering, in all your other talks, you've mentioned here and there about the threat of technology and how India is not up to speed on social... Digital colonization, cyber attacks, cyber warfare, artificial intelligence. You spoke about social media platforms having way too much power. Now, what do you think this strategy on technology should be? How important a role should it play in the next 5 years and beyond? What are your thoughts?
Excellent question. If you watch my videos where I'm talking about the term digital colonization, which I've started using, until 1.5 years back, prior to that, whenever I asked my guests, and they're very important people, they said, no problem, we're in good shape, we are tough, we are strong, there's no issue, government knows what they're doing. But you will notice in the last 1.5 years, they've started taking this issue seriously, and it's one of my favorite issues, I keep raising it. Our people are vulnerable because they're using Gmail, government secret, confidential stuff, emails, private stuff, do not distribute, private, all that written is going on Gmail as if, somebody's not listening. All your Gmail, all your these kind of international email servers are compromised. So a lot of dirty linen on our people, lot of potential to blackmail them, lot of potential to make sure that the leader does not go past a certain boundary. Within this maryada, you can be, you can have freedom, but don't dare to cross it. We can expose you and bring you down. I believe that a lot of Indian top leaders of all kinds, all parties are compromised because of this carelessness. I've talked about how data gathering, which feeds AI, the artificial intelligence relies on a huge amount of data of people, behavior, etc. is going on. And at the Kumbh Mela, Yogi Adityanath gave permission to foreign universities to come and do research. And that is their term for data gathering. And they all said, we'll set up these things, they'll do some samples, medical samples, DNA collection, doing surveys on your jati, community, where you're from, so they're building profiles of 100 million Indians from all over India. And this is a disgrace because I have written and done documentaries on how Harvard and various other Western interests have infiltrated the Kumbh Mela. And now after all of this, and you came with me, we went to meet Yogi Adityanath when he first got elected, and we told him all this, and we gave him hard copies. I don't know what they did with it, but nobody seemed to care about our warning. And they invited all the foreign institutions to come and do research on Kumbh Mela. Why can't there be Indian institutions doing research on Kumbh Mela? What is it that the foreign guys are going to do? Obviously, they're looking for data mining of our people. This data mining has political implications. It has implications for pharmaceutical research on the genetics of the people. It has implications for corporate advertising, how to win people over, how to sway people. It has implications for evangelisms, because you can evangelize when you have a good lot of data and AI about people's behavior. We haven't learned. So whether it is carelessness of electronic mail, whether it is freedom to come and do all the data mining you want in India is one of those countries for sale. Our people and their profiles and their privacy is for sale.
Why don't you talk a little bit more about your personal experience on social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, these sorts of things, and so, what are the dangers of that?
I've mentioned that social media is like espionage, like data, like privacy intrusions. People, the government doesn't want foreign-owned media. You can't have foreign majority-owned media or something. There are rules like that. But social media is even worse. I mean, the amount that the social media penetrates into your personal lives and can influence you is far greater than a newspaper, for example. And so our government just hasn't understood social media and its political, social, commercial dimensions. Just because it's free and you can come and do all this stuff free, give us your photographs, your videos, all your gossip, tell us who are your friends, what you buy, whom you support. I mean, this is a gold mine for people who are hunting big data. So there is China, and I keep mentioning this, but India is not listening. China has put controls on these people a very long time ago, which means they're smart people, and they've created their own alternatives. And those alternatives on the stock market have billions and tens of billions of dollars of value. So they've created economic wealth for their tech industry rather than becoming consumers of foreign platforms. Now, India is very proud. One of the ways you get applause is if you stand and say, we are doing so great, look at the population increase of mobile phones. Well, all those mobile phones are from China or United States. It's Android or Apple or whatever the operating system is Western, and the hardware is typically Chinese. And we are so proud that we've got the second largest number of Facebook users. You know, all this kind of nonsense. Well, Facebook is laughing all the way to the bank. They're worth a lot of money, and we are not because of that. We are consumers, and they are producers.
And they also silence some people, some voices.
So one issue is, there's many issues. One issue is we are dependent on foreign producers and become consumers of them. Just like the East India Company said, okay, we'll manufacture the textiles, we'll manufacture the steel, and you can buy it from us. And we thought, you know, wow, we're the biggest market in the world. We're buying so many shirts and underwears and pants and whatnot. We are doing well. I mean, later we realized that we got colonized. We're a bunch of stupid people. So similarly, if we are consumers of made in China cell phones or made in USA Facebook, you know, the consumer is the colonized person today. Okay, the producer is in power. Now, United States has put restrictions on the Chinese hardware companies because they realize that they make drones and they're capturing data.
Right.
They make cell phones, they're capturing data. All kinds of things they're doing, they're capturing data, and it's very sensitive. India has not even woken up to this reality. So this issue of espionage, infiltration, influencing your mind, making you think a certain way, artificial intelligence, data mining, all of this is very sophisticated. I don't know if people in the government, in the Rajya, have the wherewithal to really understand all this. I mean, India has bright people, but the Indian software talent is not being used to create the world's leading AI companies. We haven't been used them to create the world's leading platforms.
Right.
Okay, so we may have a platform, and you can give me an example, there is this or that platform, but it's hardly got any market share in the world, so it really, at the end of the day, hardly counts. We don't have in the top 20 apps of Android or Apple, we can't say that that 30% or 50% are ours. We can't say that. So we really are a digital colony. We have to understand that. Now, as far as I'm concerned, my Facebook page, which has almost 7 million followers, I feel it is at the mercy of what Zuckerberg wants to do with me. Because constantly, you know, when I put up a interview with Mohandas Pai, which was very full of praise for Modi, we got a notice from Facebook that this has been tagged as political. And so they will not, they didn't ban it, but they will not go and let it be spread to all my followers. So very few of the 7 million even found out about it. Very few. The whole idea of being a follower is that you should be notified.
Right.
Otherwise, why are you a follower? But if they think that politically they don't want to support you, then they will find a way not notifying people or notifying in a very indirect way or in a wrong time zone or whatever, so that you will not get the impact. They know how to boost somebody, the value, the views, or downsize it. So I would say in the last 6 months, I would say that at least 30 episodes, 25 or 30 episodes that we put up on Facebook were tagged as politically involved, violating community standards, whatever jargon they give you. And there is no human being you can call and argue with. There's nobody you can call and discuss. You can put in something over the email and they may listen to it or just ignore it. Why has India not said, look, if we in India are going to decide what's politically correct, not you.
Right.
Why isn't there a home ministry? Home ministry should bring Zuckerberg and he'll come flying on the next flight, because if they said we're going to ban you unless you come here and listen to us, and there should be a parliamentary committee hearings on these things.
That's what Singapore did recently.
Like Singapore did, and figure out, okay, are these guys responsible, irresponsible? There should be an authority in India that any Indian can appeal, saying I'm being unfairly treated. So many people being blocked on Twitter.
Good idea.
Because and they have nowhere to go, so they're talking to some guy in the US and begging him for help and all that, because they don't want to be in the bad books.
To be on the platform.
There should be something in India, some court or some entity that an Indian should be able to go and say, this is my case, they're not treating me fair, and that court should say, okay, you have 4 hours to fix it, unblock this guy, or else you are banned. That's the language they will understand.
Right.
So India, I really feel that India is for sale. India is being sold out because with all the good intentions of the Rajya, I'm glad Modi is there. He's better than anyone else, but it's not good enough. The government needs to take stronger action on the digital colonization.
So would you say the same also holds good for satellite technology and space exploration?
Yes, because
as much as ISRO has done well.
Yeah. This is exceedingly good. The thing is that when you look at 5G technology, you're going to have so many more antennas than before with such a huge capacity to gather the data and just send it off somewhere. And then you have satellites doing the same. And then in between you have the drones. So this business of surveillance, this business of data mining, I mean, now the capacity exists that on you as a person, they can easily afford a terabyte of data. It's not a big deal. They can afford 1,000 terabytes of data per person. It's not a big deal. So just keep gathering this data, and the processors are so fast and the AI algorithms are so sophisticated to crank through this and come up with where are you vulnerable, how to bring you down, what inducement to give you, whom through whom you can be influenced. That's the future. So the Rajya is going to be, you will think that you have a local Indian Rajya, but there'll be a virtual Rajya run from somewhere else.
Right.
And that virtual Rajya will use ways, memes to influence you. Will blackmail your official Rajya saying, okay, now this policy is too much out of line or else. And this guy will say, okay. This Rajya will say, we'll get your son into this particular big place somewhere,
right.
or something like that. So this manipulation, imperialism, colonization is at another level. So this is something we have not understood.
So the Rajya could be a foreign government or could be a foreign company.
The Rajyas, the future of colonization is not simply, United States government versus Russian government versus Chinese government trying to compete, but Google and Facebook and a whole lot of people like that also in the act. So it's a private sector, imperialism of a sort also. So you got to be smart. You just cannot say we got the world's largest population looking for, cell phones and, internet and this and that, and we are so proud because we are doing so well. I mean, that's a very foolish thing.
Right. Now, switching gears back to Rashtra, there are a lot of minorities in India, and how do you see them fit into this idea of Rashtra so that they also thrive, they are equal citizens under the law, and they feel like India is their home?
So, the idea of Rashtra is an open architecture. And it is far more complex and far more open and interesting than secularism. So the openness is such that as long as somebody is not subverting the openness, he can do what he wants. So he cannot, you have to get rid of this Dar-e-Islam idea, saying I am loyal to the Muslim nation of, and I don't respect the sovereign borders because they're man-made. You have to get rid of that. So there are certain compromises, certain things that have to be negotiated with minorities, and then beyond that they can enjoy whatever they want. But they cannot topple the sovereignty of the system, because internet is an open architecture, except if you want to bring the internet down. I mean, if you are spreading viruses, you should be clamped down. Right. If you are trying to hack it and bring the whole internet server down, you should be expelled. So unless a person or an ideology is against the Rashtra itself, whatever capacity, whatever flexibility they want should be given. They can have any rituals, they can have any holidays, they can decide what they want to eat, not eat, who their deity is, what kind of pujas they do. I mean, all that freedom is far greater under the Rashtra than any secular establishment would allow. But we have to be very clear on what is non-negotiable in the Rashtra grand narrative. So this is why the Rashtra grand narrative is it's as important as the constitution.
Okay.
The Rashtra grand narrative is as important as the constitution in defining who we are and making sure that there are certain things that are non-negotiable. Everybody has to comply with those very few important things for the integrity of the Rashtra, and beyond that there is an open architecture with freedom.
So on one side, so practically speaking, on one side you have some countries in Europe that are grappling with immigration and Islam, and then you have China clamping down on the other end. So where would you see, on a practical level, where would India fall? So
I would say that Europeans are going to get in serious trouble because they have this false hypocritical sense of, oh, we are free and all that. They're full of bias on the one hand, but this pretense that we are unbiased and giving everybody freedom means that they cannot clamp down, or they have to be always looking like they're politically correct. And this hypocrisy of having to be looking politically correct is going to be a very big liability for them. It already is. China doesn't have that hypocrisy. China can say, I don't like it, I'll get rid of it. But China, the reason China will work successfully for its people is that they've conditioned all their people not to expect anything, too much freedom. So they've raised them that the nation comes first. The Confucian idea, emperor, nation, this comes first, family. So there's a whole hierarchy of power and privilege. And then comes the individual who's serving all this. You see, so they've raised their people in a certain way. It doesn't work for Indians because Indians are not like that. So we have to craft our own, strategy to deal with so much complexity and so much diversity. Particularly challenging are the diversities that are foreign nexus driven. In the early times there was diversity, but there was nothing similar to Kaaba calling the shots or Vatican calling the shots. But now there is. And with globalization and social media, those international nexuses are more powerful because they can remote control manage their members everywhere. So India hasn't even done enough research on who are these people. I mean, one of the books I'm writing is on this very thing about the encounter of Christianity and Hinduism and so on. But I'm finding that India, you don't have that kind of scholarship. If you educate people, if you want to educate people about these kind of matters, they will say it's already been done. So and so already did it, and they're not that thirst. And hunger for new research, new data, new ideas, new strategies needs to be there.
Right.
So because the global dynamics is not stable, it's going to keep changing. The Indian Rashtra response must also be always on its toes. There is no such thing as Golwalkar already wrote this, you don't have to worry, and just read Deen Dayal Upadhyay and you'll be happy, or Sitaram Goel wrote it. I mean, that's moronic because, they did it for their time, they were brilliant for their time, but things have changed. And now we have many more things to worry about.
So since Deen Dayal Upadhyay, so you listed a few, and since Deen Dayal Upadhyay, you don't think there's any further work that's been done?
No, Deen Dayal Upadhyay knew Marxism. He didn't know postmodernism because it's new.
It was new.
He didn't know the subaltern studies because it's new. So a lot of things that are happening now, weren't there at that time. So, you can't just take an old solution to a new disease. We have to be, doctors have to keep doing research because new diseases keep coming up and it'll never end. And this is why we have Smritis, this is why we have a whole culture of research, debate, keep things vibrant, and we stopped all that.
Now, so the Rashtra has some internal problems and external problems. What would they be? What are the internal threats to the Rashtra within the country, and what are the threats from the outside?
I would say that the main threats are mediocrity. I feel that Modi is a great guy. I know the top few leaders in RSS, I have a lot of respect for them. But as you go down, it's all emotional. People are all kind of, different levels of quality and experience. And this kind of mediocre people like to stick together and keep a person like me out as a threat, that, this guy, maybe we don't want him around. So this is true of all kind of stodgy large organizations where finally they get power after a long time, and they want to have all of it, and they want to keep out anybody who's kind of an outsider to the institution. So this is something that the top leadership have to challenge, have to crack. I think the RSS leaders have to wake up and shake up their rank and file, which it's different than the way they were traditionally raised. And the BJP government has to do the same for themselves. And they have to take on these tough challenges of bureaucrats and so on. And they have to get rid of people who are mediocre and non-performers and bring in people who are better. So it should be, I think mediocrity is a very big challenge. But it is not only for leaders. I think that the public is also very moronic. I mean, a lot of people, they just want emotional, you pat in the back, you hug them and say, you're good beta, bahut acha, we are doing so well, we won this cricket match and with this old civilization, and, we will put all those guys in jail, and we won the election, and they're happy. They're just happy. And their capacity, their attention span to go deeper into the issue is not there. So this is something that maybe it has to do with families. They're not raising kids to, at least I'll tell you one thing. When I was in school and college, we were debating fiercely the issues of our time. And it was not just for emotional, there was no social media. We really wanted to go deep into it. And we had little study groups where we would read some very important literature of some sort that came up, and we would take it apart. I remember Mao's Red Book, when I was in school and college, was something we sat and we just took it apart and discussed it so much in those days. And one of the neighbors near my house, who was in my school and later in my college, went and joined the Maoist movement. He joined the Naxalbari movement, ran away from home. And he used to smuggle, come in the middle of the night to talk to us and tell us what's going on. And we would have lively discussions and debates and arguments with each other. And as teenagers, we were doing that. It's not like emotionally reject this and accept that, but we really knew what this guy is saying and what we agree, what we don't agree. Eventually we brought him back. He didn't die. Many of his other fellows died, but he's okay, he came back. And I was very happy when I was interviewing Rajiv Kumar, head of Niti Aayog, who told me that he was a Naxalite. And he ran away. He was in St. Stephen's College. He ran away. And he joined the communist revolution for a while. Didn't get killed, came back and went on, became okay. So, the intellectual vibrancy of my generation, I don't find it there. I mean, I go to young people, I love to go with young people. Those who are against the left are also kind of, emotionally right-wing, but they are not deeply read. Right. And this is a sad thing. So this is, I think, our vulnerability is we've lost the intellectual vigor.
So you've listed all these problems out. What do you see as Rajiv Malhotra's role in the Rashtra as you go forward? What is your role in affecting change?
My role is, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And if people would like to utilize me, they can do so. I have a lot of books to write. I have a lot of unfinished research projects I want to finish about these topics, which nobody else going to do. They're just not, nobody is, I'm looking for people to talk to about this. And people are very superficial. They just want to quickly give you some emotional stuff and get done with it. And the idea of drilling deep is not in there. So I need to drill deep. I need to be the guy who's drilling deep and bringing out stuff, provocative stuff, controversial stuff. People will hit me, attack me, all that is part of what it takes. So I have to keep doing that. And in terms of a role within the Rajya, so I see myself more interested in Rashtra than Rajya. I'm more interested in Rashtra. And the business of Rajya, I'm an outsider, the critic, and somebody who would like to evaluate and pass comments on them, which also is needed. But I think I would ruin myself if I sat in the seat of one of those ministers or department heads somewhere, because I'm not cut out to take bullshit. I mean, one of the reasons I left the corporate world is because I got sick of sitting in a room where a lot of people just talking nonsense, and you could have said it in 10 minutes, but they take a long time to say it, and then the next guy will say the same thing again, and then the next guy will repeat and praise this fellow. It's just so boring and so nonsensical. I decided I'll get out of this And then I was better off being an outsider, being a consultant to them. I became a consultant to the senior people in these corporate entities rather than being an insider, because an insider is also subject to the rules and protocols and what you can do, and you don't want to violate this and they'll file a complaint and all. I don't have time to be a conformist. And being in large institutions as an employee, even getting 1 rupee salary, you'll have to be a conformist. And I would rather run a think tank. I would rather run a very powerful, important, cutting edge think tank, and hope that the powers to be will support it. We want that, let this guy be on the outside and let us support him and let him do all this stuff, rather than him coming on the inside and becoming one of us and also becoming mediocre.
So Rajiv, as a final thought, I know you don't like emotional statements and feel-good messages, but I'm sure there is the silver lining that you're probably not seeing. So if at all there's a cloud, then what would be your silver lining?
No, I am seeing. 25 years ago, when I would raise these issues, nobody would support me and people would be all on the other side. Today, talking about breaking India, you get a lot of support, and a lot of other people are taking this up. Talking about the Being Different book made a huge impact, and a lot of people now want to understand what's distinct about us, how are we different. And so I feel that the awakening is there.
Young people especially.
Young people, there's a lot of energy. I get, and some of them I passed on to you, I get emails multiple a day where somebody writing about how, he wants help, and now there's some guy who wants to talk to me today, private matter on the phone, as if I'm some kind of guru, but I'm not a guru. I'm not qualified to be a guru. I cannot just go and give personal advice and counseling to people. I'm not a life coach or something like that. But people write moving experiences, long emails and letters about how their parents didn't teach them these things, the school system didn't teach them, the gurus are very superficial, they don't know where to go, they've joined this or that organization and they want to join me or help me in some way. And I feel the need is there and that awakening is there. I don't know what to do with all these people. Quite honestly, I don't know how you take such a large number of people who are very moved and very interested. I don't have an institutional organized mechanism where I can put these people in because I don't have the funding. Whatever I had, I've been spending all that. This kind of an organized effort to mobilize these people, channel them, would be important to do. So I'm encouraged that the energy exists, the awareness exists, the interest among the young people exists, but there's no supply of solutions and channeling their energies in a constructive way.
Now, is this energy that you're seeing, is it because of what the previous Raja or the government has been doing to encourage, or is this just a sort of a global phenomenon? You see it all over the world where people want to go back to their roots and their grand narrative. So is it that, or is it something that we have done right?
I think it's a combination. I think we've supplied some ideas and helped bring down the left-wing mafia. But the left-wing mafia is facing a crisis worldwide. Okay, so whether it's United States, whether it's Russia, whether it's China, whether it's Britain, France, there's a whole pendulum swinging away from this very postmodern left-wing mafia type people. And so that has been my whole calling for the last 25 years is to expose that this is not the way to human rights, this is not the way to a better life. So the collapse, the intellectual demise and collapse of the left is a global phenomenon. Now what you will find is that in the United States the conservative movement has deep roots. The conservative movement is not new. I mean, there was the Goldwater conservatives, the Reagan conservatives. They've had so many generations of conservatives with intellectual depth, and they are not just emotional people. There are lots of emotional people too, but there are also some very serious institutions. There are serious think tanks. There are conservative think tanks. They've been around for a very long time. Now, we don't have the deep conservative movement in India. And the interesting thing is some of these think tanks that are popping up all over Delhi, Brookings Institute, they're all American think tanks with a branch office. So the Americans decide who will be appointed, and he may be some government guy's son or daughter, and then it gives them an access into the government. So in a sense, the Americans have also infiltrated into the new government in various ways. Okay, so the conservative movement in India does not have that robustness. RSS can provide it but hasn't. The gurus could provide it but they haven't. They are more interested in their own particular gurudom and doing their guru business. It's a good MNC business that they have, and I think that's very good. They're teaching the right things. They're very important. So I'm not criticizing them. They have their work cut out. RSS has its work cut out and doing very well. But there is a huge space, a huge intellectual space vacant, which has not been filled, which is for the conservative, Vedic, idea-based thinking. That has not been done. To crank out position papers, policy papers, a lot of research. Now you will find manthans going on. So there is at that level where anyone who gets more than so many retweets and followers becomes an intellectual. So now all of a sudden these people, celebrity speakers, but they haven't done deep research. They are just copy pasting from here and there.
Right.
And so the depth and robustness of the conservative movement needs to happen.
Right.
But the good news is that the demand is there.
Okay, so we have a piece of good news from Rajiv Malhotra, and I think that's a great way to end this discussion. So thank you so much, Rajiv. It was a pleasure.
You asked some very good questions.
So it's a pleasure to always talk to you and be with you. I always learn a lot. So thanks again.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and namaste.
Namaste.
To you.